Hello, Nola. How's everyone doing? All right, all right. Thank you for joining us. I am seated here with, you know why we're here. Tayari Jones, Jones. I was stumbling on this backstage. Y'all forgive me. This is a literary icon here. American married. Yes. Let's give her flowers. Oprah, best-selling, Oprah's book club, best-selling author, all the things. We're just going to jump right in. And we're here today to talk primarily about kin, but of course we'll get into other things as well, okay? So kin very powerfully, intentionally navigates biological family, and the family that we choose. What made you want to explore the different types of family in this book, in this novel?
First, thank you everybody for coming out. I know you have a lot of things you can do when you're here at the festival, and I appreciate your time. Ken is the story of two girls who are best friends since they were infants, sharing a cradle. And so they grow up, I often would say they grow up like sisters, but really they grow up as sisters because, your family is who you want your family to be. I'm very interested in this idea. They call it found family, but I like to think of it as curated family. The people whom we choose to have in our lives show what for us is kind of like the emotional utopia of our lives, who we choose to have with us. And I think we all need chosen family. So often when we talk about chosen family, people think that's a referendum on your biological family, right? Like, it's almost like whenever you even hear the word biological, when you use the word biological, it means you don't like those people. Like, if you say, that is my biological father, we know you don't like that man. But I believe that you can have people that serve as, say, mother figures in your life. And that doesn't mean that you're cheating on your actual mother. It's like part of being an adult, I think, is curating who you want to have around you.
So true. And then you stated that you lost a close friend during the pandemic, during COVID, and another close friend about 5 years ago. Do you think that those deaths were catalysts for you wanting to write this book?
I think that all of us lost so many people in 2020, and that we have not properly grieved as a culture.
Amen.
We've decided to move on. But this is also a novel about the ways that we hold people in our hearts even when they're not with us. And what it means to lose a close friend. I mean, when you think about it, your closest friends have half of your memory. Like, you ever talk about something with an old friend and you remember it, and she can point out something you have forgotten? So it's like she has in her heart the archive of your life. And so when you lose a friend, you are losing part of your archive. And so this is a novel about grieving the loss of the person being with you every day, but also grieving the loss of that memory, of that other part of your experience.
So true. And something that you did brilliantly in the book, Aunt Irene's character reminded her niece of things about her mother that, Annie never got to experience, or she, didn't get to experience in real life, but she had these stories that, would come up and so forth. Can you talk to us a little about the power of aunts?
I do think your aunts can tell you some stories, and it's not always a story you want to hear, but, Nisi is raised by her aunt, and what I didn't realize even as a child myself, I knew a lot of people who were raised by their aunts, they're raised by their grandmothers. I never even understood that meant they didn't have their mothers. When I was a child, I just thought different people get raised by different people. I didn't understand the grief that was all around me of people being not raised by their mothers. And also, what does it mean for these women who have to raise children they were not planning on raising? Like, the grandmother might have thought it was time for her to live her best life, her empty nest life, and now she has another child to raise. So what does that mean for our own relationships with our mothers? I was also wondering, like, how has our relationship with our mothers as Black women, what is the legacy of, say, domestic work? Like, I feel like so many mothers of that generation, this book is set in the 50s and 60s, so many of that mothers were working in white people's houses, taking care of those children. What does it mean when the thing you do, mothering is such an intimate job, but you're doing it for work? What kind of mother are you when you get home? Like, how many of us didn't have our mothers and grandmothers full of tension because of that work? In the book, Nisi's mother-in-law says, our mothers were stolen from us. Someone should write a book about it. And I was like, yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Wow. Yes, sorry. To elaborate on that a little bit, I want to talk about intergenerational bonds, the multi-generational bonds that are so profound in this book, and the fact that most of us grew up hearing, I'm your mama, I'm not one of your little friends, right? And I'm 50, I turned 50 this year, and that may still come up sometimes, to be completely transparent. What made you tackle this? Can you elaborate more on that?
I moved back home to Atlanta. I had lived in New York, chasing this writer dream, but I knew it was time for me to go back home. I'm 55. My mother is 85. It's time for me to go home. So I went home, and part of my fantasy of going home is that I wanted to get to know my mother like we were two grown women. Because when I would come home to visit, I would always be in my childhood bedroom. And like, how are we gonna talk like two grown women when one person is sleeping it's stuffed animals in that room? So I felt like I needed to be around my mother where neither one of us in the stuffed animal room. We could just talk like grown women. But like you were saying, your mother says she's not your little friend. My mama still has no interest in being my little friend. I realized that was my fantasy, not hers. And so this book, I feel like my imagination really was filling in the blanks of what was it like to grow up in the 50s, and to all the questions that we look at in our lives now. Like, we think about issues of sexuality. We look at, idea of work, marriage, ambition, friendship, all of these things that we think about now, they thought about then, they just don't talk about it. So I wanted to think, like, what was it like coming of age against the background of the civil rights movement? Everything around you is changing. How do you find your place in it? What does it mean for what type of mother you want to be? So these are the questions I had to ask in my imagination because nobody's telling me in real life.
Wow. And so also to that point, when we think about the Jim Crow South, or at least what we've been programmed to think about the Jim Crow South or life across the country in the 50s and 60s, we're always bombarded with the strife and the pain and the struggle. But you found a way to powerfully remind us that there was also joy. There was community. There was, within the community, there's a lot of people rooting for you, right? And there was life happening beyond what we see in the history books.
I mean, here's the thing. Okay, I'll tell you a little story. When I was being interviewed, and the woman who was interviewing me, she hadn't read the book. I knew she hadn't read the book because in my day job, I teach, I'm a professor, which means I spend a lot of time talking to people who are pretending to have read books. So I knew she had not read this book. So she looked at the back of the book. She was like, and I'm not mad. She got to interview 5 people a week. She can't read all these books. But she had not read mine. So she looked at the back of that book. I know she was like, okay, 1950s, Jim Crow, black, got it. And so then she started by being like, this book was so painful. I had to put it down because I couldn't bear thinking about all our people had been through. And I said, this book? And she said, yes, because her first thought was, it's set in the 50s. This must be about how hard it is to be black. But every book I write is about how beautiful it is to be black, how complex it is to be black. And yes, the characters, they experience racism, but I like to think that the way that people experience racism, a lot of times racism doesn't wear hard boots. It doesn't clump around where you can hear it coming. Racism sometimes walks around, it's wearing its socks. You didn't even hear it. You didn't even hear it until it came up to you and tapped you on the shoulder, and you looked around with the shock that it was there. So in the meantime, they fall in love, right? People fall in love, people fall out of love. People have queer relationships. People have all kinds of life in the 1950s. They also had Jim Crow, but they had life. And that, to me, if you write characters that are not having life, then you are compromising their humanity. As a writer, I will never, ever compromise my character's humanity to make a point.
You shared that you found, so we all know that you're a Spelman College alum.
Yes, we are.
You've shared that you found the confidence to become a professional writer, to make writing a career at Spelman. Talk to us about that.
Well, I went to Spelman. I was the youngest girl in my class. I'm in the class of 1991. I was the youngest girl in the class. I was only 16. And I went to Spelman, and I knew that I liked to read and I liked to write, but I didn't know that that meant that I could be a writer. Because when I was growing up, if you like to read and you like to write, people thought that just meant you were a nice girl, right? I'm sure y'all have all heard Chris Rock when he says, when you have a daughter, only thing you need to do is to keep her off the pole. Well, this means then you don't even notice that she's a writer. All you can see is that she's nice. I think so many girls' potential is lost because all people think about is sexual respectability, and they can't see anything else about you. So I went to Spelman, a nice girl that liked to read and liked to write, but I was so blessed that I met a writer, and she was my teacher. Her name is Pearl Clegg. And I met Pearl, and she said to me, so what are you thinking about these days? I got ready to tell her, and she said, no, don't tell me, write it down. And just in that, she took me seriously enough to care what I was thinking, and she became my first audience. And I feel like that changed the course of my life. You never know how much a little bit of attention can change the life of a young person.
So you've also said that Black women have sustained you. Talk to us about what that means and the power of Black women's support in your career and out of your career.
Well, a lot of people may know that one of my mentors, me and Renee, one of our mentors is Nikki Giovanni. And Nikki always would tell us, take care of these Black women readers because they will take care of you in return. She said, with other people, you'll be flavor of the month. You could come and go. But she's like, Black readers, Black women, she said, even if you write a book they don't like, they'll hang in there and give you another chance on the next one because they are your family. And this has a different poignancy now because she said, take care of those Black women because they will come to your funeral. And I will say, even in my own life, y'all, humble me, I accidentally trended on the threads.
Did you all know this?
I didn't because I was here. A friend of mine texted me and said, are you okay? I thought she was talking about my flight. I said, it was delayed, but I'm here. I got my room. I got something to eat. And she was like, no, you trending on the threads. And I missed the whole thing, but what I did not miss was all the readers who were saying, we got you. You are not going to disrespect Tayari. And people mentioned things I had done for them 20 years ago. Like, no one had forgotten. And I realized, I was like, this community we have of Black women, readers, writers, and there were also men in there, but it was mostly Black women. I feel like a little tearful even right now thinking about it. I felt so loved and lifted up, not just as a writer, but as a person. And I am so grateful for it. And I still don't know what happened.
What is one thing you would like everyone here, and it is standing room only, you would like everyone here to know about Ken, to take away after reading Ken? experiencing the book.
Can I say more than one thing?
Yes, yes, yes.
Because I feel like our lives are complex and there's more than one thing going on. But when I wrote Ken, with it being set in the 50s, I feel like I was able to write with a certain optimism because when I'm writing in the 50s and the 60s, you know, I know the Civil Rights Act is coming. You know, like the song says, I know change gonna come. So I was able to write because I know something the characters don't know yet. I don't know how I could write today because I don't know what's around the corner. And I think that writing about the past can, in fact, give us a warning bell to the future. So if there's anything, one thing I feel like looking at the past, I mean, everyone talks a lot about the Jim Crow aspect in this book, but also think about the way of women's rights in this book, about women's reproductive rights. You know, Kimmy is here. Her book, A Terrible Strength, is all about the gynecological crisis in black women's lives. And I think this book is also about what happens when people cannot control their fertility and how if you cannot control your reproduction, you cannot control your life. We all grew up in the age, we never grew up without contraception. So it's hard for us to emotionally get our heads around if that's taken away. Like in this book, in the 50s, people were just out there rolling the dice. Kids just everywhere. Like you just couldn't, as long as you were living a sexual human life, you were rolling the dice on having kids. And we don't really emotionally understand that. And I hope and pray that we don't have to understand that. So I need everybody to vote. I need everybody to vote in the midterms. So that's one thing. But also, I want us all to love on our besties. Black women's friendships have sustained us. Do not let Bravo convince you that black women cannot really be friends. The media will have you, gaslight you into questioning what you already know. You have known how you've been lifted up. And so take care of your friends. Take care of your strong friend. And if you, like me, are the strong friend, allow yourself to be tender and let someone take care of you.
I have to clap with everyone. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming and joining us. I really do invite you. The book is for sale to my left. But in addition to that, if you haven't already, please check out the Woman Who Wrote Culture. It's like a gallery wall. And there are pictures of the author. There's one of you. Have you seen it? There's one of you at Spelman College on the payphone.
I know that picture. I thought I was cute.
Yes.
I had that asymmetric haircut. You could not tell me nothing.
It's really special, and it reminds me of a wall my grandmother used to have in her house of her grandchildren and her children. But please check it out, and thank you for being here. Thank you.
And let's give it up for our sign language interpreters.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I really appreciate it.